You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. All right, folks, I want to switch gears. Yesterday, of course, was Labor Day. It is always interesting when people have Labor Day off. They actually forget how Labor Day even came about. It didn't just sort of happen. And some interesting news in terms of where we are in this country. For the first time in more than 50 years, Americans at the highest number in terms of approval of labor unions. According to Gallup poll, their polls show that 64% of Americans approve of labor unions, surpassing 60% for the third consecutive year and up 16 percentage points from its 2009 low point. That is the highest union approval rating Gallup has recorded over the past 50 years. What does this all mean heading into this election? Joining us right now is AFSCME President Lee Saunders. Lee, glad to have you back on the show. One of the partners here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. We certainly appreciate that. This was a surprise to a lot of people, highest in 50 years.
I don't think it's a surprise to those that are working in the vineyard every day who are trying to organize and educate and mobilize and our communities across the country. People are fed up and they're angry and they're frustrated. And they see that there is an inequality that exists, an economic inequality that exists all over the country. And the economic system is rigged. It's rigged towards those that have a lot of money. It's rigged toward those that have a lot of power and wealth. And they want more power and wealth at the expense of working people. And working people are saying, hold up, wait a minute here. I mean, we have to have a seat at the table. And that's why you see what's happening, where people are saying labor unions are the counterforce, are the balance with all of this power and greed that's taking place in this country right now. I would say to you this, Roland, if you're talking to an elected official, 64%, they'd be real happy with 64%. We're happy with 64%, but we want to continue to grow. We want to continue to organize all across the country.
The reason why I would say folks are surprised is because we literally have seen for the last 20, 25 years. And I would say it goes to the election of Ronald Reagan in 1980. This constant assault, demeaning, and degrading of unions. You had folks like, oh no, right to work states. You had all these sort of different, then of course you had the Janus decision by the Supreme Court. But now all of a sudden you're seeing folks who are saying, even people who were union critics years ago who went, wait a minute, hold up. They now are seeing the reality of the decimation of the middle class. They're seeing the impact on low-wage workers. They're now seeing that because America was the nation was told, oh no, a lot of the free enterprise to do what it does, and then that would, rising tide will lift all boats. Now people are saying, that didn't work.
Well, trickle-down economics doesn't work. And we see it every single day where the wealthy have more wealth at the expense of working people. That gap is the largest that it has ever been in American history. And people understand that working families need a seat at the table. And the way you get the seat at the table is to join a union. 50% of Americans, if they had the opportunity, are saying that they would join a union to improve their wages, benefits, and working conditions because they understand the effectiveness of working together and coming together as one to deal with the issues that confront our communities every single day.
We discussed this a couple of times previously. But do you also think that the attacks on unions and the election of Trump forced unions, not just your union, but in terms of the union lobby across the country, to go, you know what, we better start telling our own story because, we discussed it before. The biggest criticism that I've had is that labor unions allowed themselves to be defined by their opponents and did not have an effective narrative to counter their critics.
We had to get back to basics. The labor movement had to get back to basics. One of the ways in which we get back to basics is to talk with our members, talk to our potential members, have a discussion with them, listen to what they've got to say, and then promote the kinds of activities promote the kinds of good things that unions do all across the country, having a seat at the table, being able to not only improve the lives of our members, but improve the lives of their families and folks living in their communities all across the country. Explain and talk about that narrative and say that that seat is being taken away from you. It's being taken away from you to make you and your families and your communities weaker, and we can't stand for it. People are coming together. This is a movement moment, and you've heard me say this before, where folks from all walks of life are coming together saying, whoa, enough is enough. This is unfair, the economy is rigged, and we've got to do something about it to fix it.
Yesterday, Trump, instead of focusing on hurricanes, he was, and also between him playing golf, decided to attack the head of the AFL-CIO, complaining, saying union dues are way too high. And so what do you make of, again, on Labor Day, Trump playing golf, attacking unions, the folks who actually created Labor Day?
We've got to concentrate on what we do best, and that is organizing and educating and mobilizing our members and our communities across the country. We are preparing, just as we did in 2018, and we had major victories in 2018, electoral victories. We're preparing for 2019 and 2020. We're going to be putting boots on the ground. Our folks will be familiar with what's going on. They're going to be educated about what's happening to working families across this country, and we're going to have a massive campaign in education, but also getting people out to vote. Very, very important.
What are your trade union folks saying in places like Ohio, where Hillary Clinton lost by 450,000 votes? A ton of union people supported Trump because of his criticism of NAFTA. We saw the exact same thing. A lot of union workers who voted for Obama in 2008, 2012, who chose to vote for Trump in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. What conversations are being had? What are they saying that they're going to do? Those auto workers. Trump talked about, bringing it back, but that hasn't happened. Steel workers, he claims they're building new steel mills. They're not. And so what discussions are being had with those union leaders to say, how are you going to go directly to your people and say, you voted against your own interest in the last election?
What's the reality now? One thing that we have now that we didn't have in 2015 and 2016 was Trump now has a track record. He made a lot of promises to working people. A lot of folks fell for those promises. But now, you've got a track record. He has a track record. You go to Lordstown, right outside of Youngstown in Ohio, and you talk to those workers about the promises that he made in keeping that plant open. And if you recall, he made the statement, don't sell your homes because you're going to be just fine. The plant closed. You can replicate that story in state after state after state. Promises broken. We've got to educate our folks and working families saying he promised a lot, but he didn't deliver on anything. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Also, in this way, tomorrow is our first anniversary of this show. And in the course, we ran the numbers. So in the last year, we've done about 70 million views across all three platforms, increased our YouTube channel by more than 200,000. And so we certainly appreciate AFSCME being one of our founding partners in helping us do this, because part of the piece is also being able to have communication apparatus and supporting media that understands these issues, that speaks to our people.
You're getting a message out, a very, very important message out to our community. People need to hear it, and we're going to continue to support you. So, in fact, that message continues to get out there, and we do what we must do to change this country and move this country forward.
Because 2020 is going to be critical, and the concern that I have is that we saw it in 2016. Your mainstream media outlets showing empty podiums of Trump and whatever kind of crazy thing that he said, but not hearing from and speaking to the very people who are most impacted by this public policy.
I think that you have a message machine, Roland, I really do, and we've got to target our communities to impress upon them the importance of this election and the issues that impact on them and what could happen if we continue down this direction. So we support what you're doing. I think that you've got to go into these communities in every city okay? And sit down and talk with young black men, okay? With older black men. Talk to communities of color and explain to them and talk to them and listen to them about the issues that are confronting them every single day, and then draw a conclusion and bring them together saying the only way that you can deal with this is collectively coming together and making your voices heard. One of the ways you make your voices heard is to get out there, register to vote, but also to vote. We have this opportunity. That's why it is a movement moment. And you have a key place in moving that message with the people who listen to you, just as unions have a key place in moving that message, okay? And putting boots on the ground and educating folks so we understand what's at stake next year.
Well, we're definitely going to do that, just like we were in Memphis last year, MLK 50, and then, of course, 2017. And then we are definitely going to be, in terms of pushing, going to those places, because I think we also have to connect the dots. And we talked the same thing about before. A lot of people don't understand in terms of what happens with this particular race, how it impacts something way over here. We're going to discuss in a moment what happened in North Carolina, where 3 judges have now ruled that they're a complete redrawing of all districts in North Carolina because of political gerrymandering. How that, and the work of Reverend Barber and others to change the state Supreme Court. So now if they appeal the decision, you now have a democratically controlled state Supreme Court who's more likely going to rule in favor, keep that court ruling. So people who only think about D.C. have to understand that when you talk about mobilizing and organizing, it impacts these state races and local races.
Well, and let me say this, and that's our neighborhood. That's where our folks live, their families live, our communities. Those down ballot races are just as important as the races that are taking place nationally and here, congressionally, Senate-wise. Those down ballot races are just as important as a presidential race. Okay, you've got to elect a friendly governor. You've got to elect a friendly state legislature who believes in supporting working families.
And courts.
Supporting our communities. And courts, the appointment in those courts, well, you can elect in some state Supreme Courts. But that's one thing that people don't think about.
Republicans do.
Look what they do. Look what Trump has been able to do with his friends on Capitol Hill as far as appointing justices, okay? Appointing judges in states that are going to be there for a long time, who are going to be carrying their philosophy. That should scare everybody. And that should at least tell us that we've got to organize ourselves to combat that kind of activity, because the kinds of decisions they're going to be making are going to impact on us for years and years and years.
We're certainly looking forward over the next year. Your commentary is right here on the show, and also, of course, our American Worker segment, which we also get some great stories that you guys have done with AFSCME about folks out there do stuff on the ground. So it's been good to feature those individuals and showing other folks what they're doing and the great work that they're doing.
They're the everyday heroes in public service.
Absolutely. Lee Saunders, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, brother. The mean green machine of AFSCME is on a roll. Earlier this month, the governor of Nevada signed a bill empowering 20,000 state employees with collective bargaining rights. They now have a seat at the table to negotiate for a fair return on their work, for safer working conditions, and more. This is the biggest expansion of collective bargaining rights for state employees in any state since 2003. And it comes on the heels of a similar win for Delaware state workers, improving their ability to bargain for better wages. In Illinois, AFSCME members endured a 4-year reign of terror under former Governor Bruce Rauner. Rauner wouldn't even come to the table with us. But now, with the new pro-worker governor in office, we have a tentative contract that honors the contributions state employees make to their communities. State employees in Pennsylvania have reached a 4-year tentative agreement with the Commonwealth. Members are currently voting on ratification, and preliminary results are very positive. We're also seeing progress on the federal level. The Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act was just introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives. This bill gives public employees rights and protections enjoyed by those in the private sector. It requires public employers to recognize unions when a majority of employees want one, to bargain over wages, hours, and terms of employment, to provide access to a dispute resolution mechanism, and to allow union members to voluntarily deduct union dues from their paycheck. It was exactly a year ago that the Supreme Court issued its decision in Janus versus AFSCME. A lot of so-called experts thought we couldn't bounce back. They thought Janus would be a knockout blow. They thought wrong. Instead, we're growing, surging, and winning. Now, we need to build on the momentum. Call your member of Congress at this number and tell them to co-sponsor the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act. Tell them to unrig the economy by giving working people the power to take collective action through a strong union. Tell them to give working people the voice on the job they need and the basic respect they deserve.